Welcome to and welcome back to Women Speaks. Last week I posted the introductory video to Women Speaks or to this channel. So basically, today is the second installment where I'm going to talk about some women. However, the first person I decided to talk about is a young girl. Now, this young girl does not have a name. She is known as a slave. She is known as a captive. She is known as a maid servant. She is known as Naaman's servant girl. I love her story so much. The fact that even though she did not have her family around, she did not have her mother, she didn't have her father, she didn't know anyone because she was in a new land. She didn't really know she didn't have anybody around her that she knew. The only person she basically knew, the people that she basically knew, was Naaman's wife, because Naaman's wife was basically her master. And Naaman was also her master. And that's why the Bible mentioned her as Naaman's servant girl, because when Israel was fighting the Syrian army, she basically lost her mom and her father. Probably, I don't know if she have any brothers or sisters or any other cousins, but I'm sure her family was killed by the Syrian army when Israel was basically surrounded by surrounding nations at the time. So this servant girl not only was just a servant girl, but she genuinely wanted to help her master, even though these people may have been the people who actually killed her mom and dad. But she genuinely wanted to help. She genuinely wanted to show that she has a God that she trusts in, a God that she believes that can heal, a God that can actually save a nation, a God that can actually save a man's life, a family's life. She didn't have any resentment. She didn't have any animosity towards this man. However, she wanted to help him. Her story can basically found in 2 Kings chapter 5. And again, she is known as Naaman's servant girl. The reason why I decided to talk about this story is because I love the fact that she didn't have to say much. She just said a few words. Just a few words have so much power in it. And this man who is known as Naaman, he was a respected man in the king's army in Syria. He was respected. He was a violent warrior. He kills a lot of soldiers in the army, and he was the commander of the army as well. But he was respected, and at the same time, though he had all these great things about him, yet he had something else. He had a secret. He had a weakness. He had a disease, which was leprosy. Now this servant girl come into play. She said, verse 2 in chapter 5, now Ben, a rider from Aram, had gone out and had taken captive a young girl from Israel, and she serves Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, if only my master would see the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy. Now, this young girl was talking about her master, which was, or the prophet in Samaria, which was Elisha. Elisha was a great prophet. He done a lot of miracles. And she said, if only my master could see the prophet in Samaria, he would be cured of his leprosy. Now this girl was not kind of like the wave of the sea. She was not flip-flopping anywhere. She said it and she meant it. and let's see what happened. So Naaman decided to go to the king to get permission to go to Samaria. So the king granted his request. So now the king give gold, some items, some things to take to the prophet. However, when Naaman went there, Prophet Elijah heard about Naaman coming. Elisha decided not to go out to meet with Naaman. He sent message to Naaman and said, tell him to go to the Jordan River and dip himself in the river 7 times and he will be healed. Now Naaman, who is a mighty warrior, who is a great man, who is a respected man, expected Elisha to step out and do some type of things, some type of prayer on top of him, or do whatever he can do, or touch him, touch his head, touch wherever, so that he can be healed. But the instruction that Elisha got from the Lord was for him to tell Naaman to go in to the river, the Jordan River, dip himself 7 times, and in that he will be healed. Naaman was upset, and then he went back home. Wherever he went back home. I assume he went back home, and then he was upset. Now, the second time the little girl spoke, he said, my father, if the prophet had told you to do some great things, would you not have done it? How much more then when he tells you to be clean in the Jordan 7 times? So that when it dawned on Naaman, he listened to the girl, and then he went back. He dipped himself once, twice, a 3rd time, nothing. A 4th time, he still had the leprosy. A 5th time, the leprosy was still there. How many times sometimes when God tells us to do something, and so many times, and we decided not to follow his instruction? The 6th time he dipped himself, nothing happened. He probably was just thinking, okay, well, I've already did it 6 times, but on the 7th time when he dipped into the river, 7th time, he came back as a brand new. His flesh was healed. He was made new. I'm sure his leprosy was not the only thing that was healed at the time. I'm sure Naaman had some other things that had to be break in his life. I'm sure Naaman probably had other things like anger. He probably had thought he was better than everybody else. He probably thought he was better than that young girl, even though he did follow her directive. As a commander, he went and followed her directive. And then he got the healing. Sometimes as young people, as women, we may not have a place in society. Many people may see us as insignificant, but when God is the one who speaks a word in our lives, and he says to say this and say that to this person, first of all, we have to basically watch who we listen to and who we watch and who has the fruit of the Spirit on them or in them. This young girl, one of the things that I can actually learn from her story is that she had the fruit of the Spirit in her. She did not just tell Naaman to go. She was so humble into what she was saying. And she was really bold and very confident that God, the God of Israel, can do marvelous things, can heal this man. All she had to do is just speak it out. She speak the word. And then Naaman had his healing. He didn't just have his healing, but I'm sure there were some other things that God had to break in Naaman. And because of her story, because of the little thing, the small words that she basically speaks into this man's life, it changed his life forever. It changed the life of the family forever. Not only that, it also introduced Yahweh, the God of mercy, into a nation that was worshiping false idol, that was a pagan nation that was worshiping false idol, false gods. And then because of her small words, powerful. She was young yet, but powerful. Because she served a powerful God. And she knew what her powerful God could do in the life of a man, in the life of a commander of an army. Yes, he was a great man. He respected men. Yet he had leprosy. He had leprosy. Sometimes we have to be humble when God speaks some things into our life, when God says something to us as believer, not just as believer, but we have to be able to know that God is the God who is the great healer, even leprosy. Now Naaman is healed. He is a new man. And then he went back to thank Elisha. He went back to say thank you to Elijah. And then now the nation, his people, saw that there is a real God who is a true God, the true God of Israel, the God who never sleeps, the healer of us all. One of the things I learned about this story is that God is such a powerful God. Even though this young girl was taken captive by this commander, by this powerful soldier, powerful yet, I'm sure he had some type of weakness in him too. Because back then, a great man like him actually listened to a young girl. Though in society, sometimes people may see us as insignificant, like I said before. But when God is the one who speaks in us, it doesn't matter who it is. People will listen. This great man, Naaman, respected man in the army, in the king's army, listened to a servant, to a slave girl, so that he can get his healing from Prophet Elisha. I just love this story so much. When Naaman got so upset because he expected his healing to come somewhere else, he expected his healing to come a different way, but God is saying, this is how I want you to do it. Naaman probably have his own way of doing things in the army because he's a commander. He's giving directive to his soldiers. He's giving orders how things should be done. But now he's expected Elisha to do things the way he wants him to do things. As people, as followers of God, as followers of Christ, we have to learn how to take order. We have to learn how to take order from God. Not the way we want things to be done, because that's how we want it done, but because we have to learn how God wants things to be done in our lives. And this young girl was not afraid to say, if the prophet says this, why not do it? What makes you think you're so great that you cannot dip yourself in the Jordan River to get your healing? The prophet is not saying it for himself. He's saying it for you. Do you want your healing? Just because you're this great commander, you expect the man of God to step out, to come and meet you, to come and see you and do whatever you want him to do because you are the captain, because you are this and that. You expect him to give your healing to you the way you want it, not the way he's telling you to get it. We all can learn something from this young girl's story. I just love her story so much. The first time I read it, it gives me chills. Because I'm like, back in the day, young girls, women didn't really have place in society. Now this girl, she's speaking so boldly, so powerfully. She has so much wisdom to speak into a man's life, to change his life forever. Please stay tuned on our next installment of Women Speaks. Thank you.